Supreme Court is acting up again in yet another pro-gun decision that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's the High Court in more ways than one, guys. Good news for drug users, too, because you can own a gun again. Isn't that great? What we can all agree on, more drug users should own guns. Now, in their unending quest to ensure that every man, woman, and child in America can buy a gun without any conditions whatsoever, the Supreme Court ruled this week that Americans with a history of past drug use can legally buy guns again. Now, before this, there was a federal law that if you were using illegal drugs or addicted to drugs, you were barred from buying a gun. You may remember this law because it's what got Hunter Biden in trouble when he lied on a federal forum saying he wasn't a drug user. He was quite a drug user. Now, under this new law, Hunter Biden would be able to buy that gun no problem. Now, this is an interesting case because I'm not an anti-weed guy. I'm really not. I mean, this seems to me, though, like it's about so much more than just drugs, right? This is about expanding the legislation and expanding our conception of gun rights to be so maximalist that there is virtually no circumstance in which you can be denied a gun ever. Under this new law, because you can't be barred from having done drugs in the past or even recently, as long as you don't self-identify as currently being addicted to drugs, you're able to buy the gun. No problem. That creates an interesting scenario where you need to be actively high and also admit to being addicted to drugs at the moment you're buying the gun in order for that gun license to be denied. Now, you may think that's a crazy thought, but it's not. We've been here before. The Supreme Court earlier this year said that domestic abusers would be able to own firearms as long as they don't pose an imminent safety threat to people around them. So basically, as long as you're not beating your wife at the moment you bought the gun, you could say, yeah, I've been charged with domestic abuse, I've been convicted, but that's all behind me now. Same thing with the weed case. And what's next? Who knows? With all of these things falling and the rules around gun ownership getting weaker and weaker, who knows what next session is going to bring for the Supreme Court? It is a disaster for gun rights. And even more concerning, that this was unanimous. 9 justices, including all the Democrats, supported it. Truly, truly bizarre. Now, I believe we may have the delightful and wonderful foreign policy expert Nayyera Haq with us at last. I'm not sure. Let's make sure.
Hi.
Nayyera, how are you?
Good. It's great to be on with you. And thanks for, I'm glad that everybody is still engaged. I was listening very closely to what you were talking about with
You have saved all of the people watching.
Insane. It really, truly is insane that we can parse the details of the law in this way with gun rights, but there's no other rights that get to be that expansive. Voting rights don't get to be that expansive. Civil liberties and the right to protest, that's not expansive. But apparently when it comes to guns, they will nickel and dime every aspect of the law to make sure that guns get into the hands of anybody.
And it seems to me like this is we talk about this as a Republican plan, and it certainly is, but all 9 justices supported this. The Democrats went for this too. I mean, what are they thinking?
I honestly, I don't understand. And I get that the court looks at the intent of the law and then more, they look at not just the case itself, but how this sets precedents and what the impact would be for the theory of the law. But we're in a court system right now where the lawyers and the judges are not really abiding by the theory of the law anymore. So you have the conservatives and the federalists who are doing what they can to make political decisions from the bench. And then the Democrats are sitting there being like, well, we have to protect the ways things have always been. And really, it's the Democrats and the traditionalists and those who are all about civil liberties and norms. Those things are great, but you have to understand that we're not working on the same foundation. It's not equal footing anymore, right? And so this has to be a reimagining of how the Constitution is being applied in real time. And the fact that the arc of the moral universe is long and it may bend towards justice, but that's only because people are responding in real time to what's happening around them. and trying to
Yeah.
adapt to that, not this idea that if we just continue to do the way things have always been, we'll get back to normal.
Yeah. And the irony of this case specifically is that the White House and Donald Trump were actually defending the federal law that bans people who have drug use in their past from owning guns, in large part because the person who was arrested was a dual citizen. He's non-white, and he sort of represents the kind of people Donald Trump wants to get out of the country. So Republicans were pretty upset that their Republican president was out at the Supreme Court arguing really stridently for gun control, while the NRA was out there arguing against it. I mean, where do you see this moving now?
I have a hard time predicting where some of these things are going to go, because
Yeah.
we are in this moment where, unless you look at the very specific jurisdiction and the personality that is in place, right? We're not working with the norms and the standards we had. We're working with personalities who are making decisions, and then, all right, how can we appeal that decision? Where is it going to go? But is it going to go to another politicized place? So I leave the prediction of these types of cases, the specific cases, to people who are far more aware of legal policy than I am. But what I will say
Yeah.
is that I do know that many lawyers I've talked to, many people in the judicial system recognize that they need to be doing something more fundamental and not just applying case law from the past. They need to be looking ahead and reinterpreting where things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a comment from Antonio. He says, the Supreme Court ruled that all constitutional amendments are equal in weight. Stop separating the constitutional amendments. Not sure what that means, but don't tell that to the Fourth Amendment, which has been gutted so much that police can now effectively search you without a warrant for any reason that they want.
Well, and then, the idea of the 13th Amendment. And yet we
Yeah.
have legalized slavery in this country, when if you are put in jail, you can be forced to work for $1 an hour, right? Or even $1 a
Yep.
day, right? We have forced labor in this country. And I appreciate that point so much for that reason, which is it's the way that things get challenged and refined is because a court case has been brought, and then the
Yep.
judges have to refine it. So the NRA has brought a lot of cases to expand the meaning of the Second Amendment. If cases aren't brought, if there's not a movement to expand the meaning of other amendments, and in fact to narrow the 13th, to narrow the Voting Rights Act, then yes, the law moves in a more constrictive direction. But that requires a lot of money and energy and attention. And unfortunately, that money and attention is what is making the system move right now, not a broader sense of values of keeping things equal.
Yeah. And certainly in the legal sense, at least what Congress has done is certainly not equal. We have a comment from Maureen who says the CDC is prevented by law from doing research into ways to solve the problem of people being shot by guns.
Yes.
That's true. There's a federal ban on gun violence research. I mean, equality, I don't know where he's getting that one from.
The idea that looking at guns as a healthcare issue has been a fight. Just to look at it as a healthcare issue.
Yeah.
The Biden administration got funding for CDC specifically to look at gun deaths and what are some of the correlations, what are some of the causations, and what impact they have on the healthcare outcomes of the community. We already know by science and by data that if there is a gun involved in a dispute or in a fight, then yes, it makes a murder or a death far more likely. Right? Like killing is more likely.
Yeah.
We know that, but apparently in order to be able to put this into law, to really have this become part of the public consciousness, you need more research, you need more data. And so by the Trump administration stopping that, they can just say, it's all in your head. It's made up. None of this is true.
That is the Republican line.